Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ask Clever Over Coffee, How AI Built This. I am your host, John Marino, and I'm along with ChatGPT, who's voiced by Billy Darkenwald.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Great. And in studio today, we are excited because today's show is going to be slightly different than all the other episodes. So if you haven't watched or whatever, no big deal. But today, we have Nick Wassenberg from Cludo.com, who is here today to talk a little bit more about helping us all use AI more efficiently and effectively. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah.
Excited.
Well, I've been excited to learn a little bit more about what you are doing. And then through our conversation, I was really inspired to put together this show in a way that we are going to be talking to ChatGPT a lot more in this show than normal. And Nick is going to be giving all sorts of different clues and basically really about like the best way to use ChatGPT and prompt engineering. And we're super excited to get into that. But before that, Nick, why don't you just give a little background on, what you've been up to and kind of what led you to your company that you have today?
Sure. Rewind a little bit. Back in 2000, I built my first website. So that was a long time ago. Websites and the internet was a lot different back then, but have been in technology and in marketing technology and website technology my whole career. Fast forward to today, I'm CEO of Cludo, which is actually a company that's based in Denmark, based in Europe, and has our headquarters here in Minneapolis, Minnesota for North America. And our mission is to create great customer experiences online. And how we do that is actually to provide site search and discovery that works really well for people. So they're on a site, they want to find something specific, they can find it easily. And now we're in the midst of a revolution in terms of how people find things with AI. So we're applying that to some of the world's greatest websites too. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's Cludo in a nutshell. Better experiences through better websites.
That's awesome. And I'm excited because really we are starting to see how people find and use the technology out there differently. So like up until this point, Google search has always been the way that any of us learn anything that's on the internet. And now with AI, there's just a different way to communicate, but also to get more relevant information that you're actually seeking instead of sifting through. So the shift is happening, and that's why you're in-house today to really help us, learn how to do this together. So that way we can all be a little bit wiser when we're using this stuff. Yeah. But first question is, so how do you end up with a partner in Denmark? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, the company was started in Denmark almost 10 years ago now. And so that it was started by a group of people. The origin story is fairly straightforward and still is really core to our being today. So the very first instance of Cludo was built for a higher education site, a university site in Europe that needed a better site search. So most of us know university websites have a ton of content on them.
Right.
Could be thousands of domains, hundreds of thousands of pages, things that are getting updated every single day, multiple times a day, many editors, super complex. And so, but they're also part of what makes a university great. They're vibrant. They have great branding. They have great messaging. They have things happening. There's vibrancy there. And so back 10 years ago, there wasn't a great solution to provide site search. So you'd have, as a website visitor to that university, you'd have to navigate around and you'd have to really dig deep to find a class or an event that was happening. So Cludo was built to provide an easy way for people to find what they wanted through a little search bar. So we probably all have seen this, the little search bar with the magnifying glass. Lots of sites have it. That's why Cludo was created in the first place. And now we're serving similar customers where they have a ton of content and visitors just want to search. We're all accustomed to search. We've been searching for decades now, as you pointed out. So that's what we exist for, and that's our origin story. Was a single university, and now we've expanded to 700 plus customers around the world.
So you have a little bit of experience on LLMs, which is a large language model, and you've seen it evolve from the very basic back in the day. If any of us listening or watching, remember when you used to type into the search bar, it did not finish your sentence. And now it finishes the sentence and gives you different options or what have you, just to help you do it more fast and effectively. But in today, you can really even speak to it and tell it a long question of like what you're like seeking for, like, hey, what's happening on a Friday night at 7 p.m. And then the search will go into action and show you everything that's relevant to exactly what you're asking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's changed for people creating websites too. I remember way back in the day, I don't know if anyone in the audience is going to remember this, but there was something called Overture where you'd have to submit and you'd have to list what category your website belonged in. And that was how you got listed. And then a person navigating the web would have to go through a directory to find where you were. Times have changed a ton since then. And now you can speak. Voice search is super common. People do that on their mobile devices and on desktop. You can do super long tail phrases. Obviously, generative AI has changed the game in terms of what type of prompts you can engineer to get not just responses, not just a list of text, but tables, pictures, you name it. You can get your ability to frame what you're looking for and get an answer that's super rich, I think, is becoming the expectations. That's what's really exciting for what we're doing and what I'm seeing, and I think where the web is going is just much richer answers,
It is. Since you brought up Overture, Overture was the ads platform for Yahoo.
Right.
And I remember, if you remember, just let's go down memory lane real quick. The freewallpaper.com. Do you remember seeing that everywhere back in the day?
Right.
Those ads?
Right.
Did you know that company was out of St. Cloud?
Is that right?
Yeah. 3 brothers out of college.
Wow.
Or dropout. They created that, and then they did the ads, and then they would service, and they would make money when people came to Free Wallpaper or downloaded or whatever.
Yeah.
And they ended up selling it for like $7-8 million.
Yeah.
That was like everywhere. That's what I remember of Overture.
Right.
I was like,
right.
wow.
It's so when we think about what the future holds, I think some of it's unpredictable, some of it is behavioral change that's going to be natural, but the future's exciting to think about, I think.
What do you see? Like, let's say in the last 3 years, what would you say from like 2021 to today in 2024? What would you say is like the top 2 or 3 biggest shifts in search that you've seen so far?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we saw directly was COVID related, like people needing really, really critical information about services in their communities. So there's an aspect of it's literally the World Wide Web. I can find anything anywhere around the world. But when I need something that's in my neighborhood because I need a test or I need a vaccine or I need to know what's open, what's closed, that localized search really, I think, came into focus how there were limitations there. And there were things that needed to be better there, both on government sites and just on Google too, and on other search engines. So I think the localized version of the web is something that perhaps people hadn't thought about quite as much. They certainly thought about things like Yelp or local reviews and things like that. But in terms of really tapping into critical, vitally important, and urgent, kind of timely information from local sources that they could rely on it's something that spiked in its importance. So that was a bit of a revelation that I think COVID brought about for us.
Oh, I would agree because, during COVID was travel restrictions.
Yeah,
okay?
that too.
And so when you wanted to know what was like, hey, I'm thinking about traveling to a different state or even, let's say, a different country, and you wanted to look up the travel restrictions or what was their policy or what did you need or any of that, it was ridiculously hard on different entities and different government run websites to find that information. Like they thought they put it in the most useful place, but it was buried like in a section, in a section, in a section. And then like if you're traveling with kids or you're traveling with pets or all these other different dynamics or even have medication, it was just like, okay, what's allowed, what's not allowed? Do you have to quarantine? What are the rules? Because everybody had different rules. And I remember using different websites for government websites all across the country and in different parts of the world. And I couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you saw that. And then that's what you were working with your clients?
Yeah, super important problems to solve and like life and death problems to solve in some cases. So yeah, super important. I think the other piece is that people generally have a high expectation for accuracy too. Like that's why we see some people getting frustrated with Google as a search engine. as a traditional type of search engine is, because what they see in the list of blue links, or what they have seen in the list of blue links, they can't really rely on. They need to skip the ads, or they need to filter out. They need to do a search that is, you see a lot of people search for something and then add Reddit to the end so they can find some real people talking about what they really want to see. So there's an aspect of the search engine, both ad model and business model, that started to cause some doubt in people's minds. And so it's a changing atmosphere and a changing environment for what people's expectations are. I think we saw that too. We're all very online, as they say. So
Yeah.
it is something that we all depend on, and we depend on accuracy too. So I think that is going to continue to be super important.
Yeah, and whether you're searching for like what to do locally on a Friday or Saturday night, and if you do that and you search through Google, you'll get different websites or different things, a bunch of irrelevant things, or just a local website has one thing, going on. Like if a restaurant happened to appear in the search results. But then if you go on to an AI such as ChatGPT and you ask, hey, what's going on in Minneapolis this weekend? It literally just answers the question.
Yeah, right.
And that is the remarkable difference between search and then using AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can provide, I think we've seen that in different search engines, and the kind of evolution of AI that we've already seen. It's still, from a actual consumer usage, average everyday person usage, we're still very early days. But people are getting used to what types of questions are best to be asked, how to ask them. If I just want an address for something, which I do all the time, I might still Google it. But if I want something that can give me a little bit more detail and lead me down kind of a rabbit hole, I'm probably going to go to some other tool, Perplexity or somewhere else. So it's like people are constantly refining what tools they use and how they use them and for what type of query. Like we see that too.
So when you're sitting down with a new client, let's say, and let's say it's a large organization, okay, with a lot of content, just like you said, what would you say is like the top 3 ways to prepare to enter that meeting for the client or potential new client? Like, what is some of the biggest obstacles that are like, hey, what you've been doing, this is how it's, the old way. Yeah. And then now with, Cludo, like, this is how we're going to help you become better.
I think really one of the things that we see repeatedly is people come to the table and sometimes they actually underestimate how much people are using their site to search for something. So as an example, I went to the University of Minnesota for my undergrad. If I were to go there, if I look at the University of Minnesota site, it's not uncommon for 40 to 45 to 50% of the visitors to umn.edu are using the search rather than navigating. That hurts me a little bit as a career-long marketer, how we think through all these journeys and we think through the navigation pathways and here's the call to action. But at the end of the day, I really just want to know, when's the next Gopher game? When is the next alumni event that I want to go to?
Right.
When is spring schedule starts? Whatever the case may be. So people, like 40, 50% of people are searching before they navigate, which means search is the experience. So for people coming to us and people that we talk to, recognizing how actually core to the experience of the site it actually can be is important. And then if we have a recognition of that, we can run some data and people can look at their own analysis on that and see what's happening, do some user testing. That's important. But then start to understand where the audiences are at and what types of searches you're actually seeing. Do some data mining to see what people typically search for. What if they're on the homepage, what are they not finding that they want to search for? You might be able to add some content. You might be able to update your navigation, add a call to action. The big apply now button might be something you want to add. So there is an adaptation that might happen even with the design of the site based on what you're seeing people search for. It's one of the few places that people are typing in what they want to see directly. Sure. You can read exactly what they say. And then if you build on that kind of understanding the audience's goals and the objectives and what pathway you want them to take as the owner of the website, then you can start to build an AI and you can say, okay, this type of query and this type of experience on this page for this audience lends itself to similar to what we just talked about, maybe a longer form, richer set of information rather than a link, or rather than a quick link directly to the application page. So understanding behavior, understanding the core behaviors of the audiences, and then building that into how AI can make that even richer from a generative AI standpoint.
Now, does Cludo use an AI chatbot with your different clients to serve that information as well?
We do, yeah. There's a lot of our customers are using the traditional search bar as well as kind of a chatbot experience, typically in the lower right, but it can live anywhere. And what's really kind of fascinating to see site by site is if you have both of those experiences, where do people go? What do people use? We can look at our own website, Cludo.com, and it is about 75% of the visitors are still using the top search, 25% are using the chat kind of guided experience.
Oh, fascinating.
So there's a mix there. It's not 0 and 100. It's some sort of mix. So that tells us and gives us some things to look at, improve upon, kind of guide people through the right journey there too.
Sure.
But it's a mix. All of our customers are different that way. So.
Well, and what's interesting is that user experience does change from industry to industry.
Right.
So some of the clients that I'm working for in the medical field or in the jet charter industry, they see more of like a 50-50. 50% people use search and 50% use the AI chatbot on the site. Yeah. And what I like about the AI chatbot is that generally if you're talking to the chatbot, it just answers your question. So the difference being, like, if you go up to search, it's going to give you all the keywords relevant to whatever you typed in. So if you're looking for events. But if you talk to an AI chatbot, it will literally just answer your question. Hey, is there a football game at home this weekend? Yes or no. And it says yes or no. You know, like, you don't have to like read. It just tells you the answer.
Right.
And I think that's where the shift is happening, and more people who are using AI are starting to really see the value, which is, you know, where I think, you know, search in general, even like with Google or how you search the internet, is ultimately going to really change into the AI search, where it's just going to give you what you're looking for instead of all the relevant pages.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a user interface change that people are expecting too. And there are cases when you want the exact answer, and there are cases that we see with some of our customers, and probably we all experience this in our lives too, is I'm actually kind of exploring. I want to go visit St. Pete's Clearwater in Florida. Maybe I'm looking for like a dog-friendly beach. Right. Or like a dog park or something.
Yeah.
If I go there, maybe it's actually beneficial for that website owner to also show me where's the dog-friendly patios. Where's the dog wash? Like, show me kind of a richer set of related recommendations almost to provide that. So I think we're entering into a phase of not necessarily targeting people in a new way and retargeting with ads, but just providing pathways where it's logical that this is the next thing that I'm going to be looking for. And you can use AI and generative AI to build out some of those richer experiences in a way that is like, okay, I'm a dog owner that's going to go visit this part of the world. Let me have a really good time and show me all of what St. Pete's Clearwater has to offer, basically. Yeah,
because like, when you're traveling, you're most likely going to ask about, hey, what are the popular restaurants? You know, what type of food? Where do people go? What are the attractions? And then if you have like special interests, like if you like to hit up different museums, or you know, we were talking off camera beforehand about like national parks. Is there one close to wherever you're visiting? Like, what's the closest national park? It could just give you the answer to that without having to go, well, here's all the things that talked about national parks. And you're like, I didn't. Just tell me the answer. Just like give it to me.
Yeah. And people can get even more specific. Like, where's the gluten-free bakery that's 5 minutes away from Zion National Park that has free parking, and I can get there on the shuttle if I want to, and on and on and on. Like, being super specific, having what I would consider like super long tail phrases, as opposed to like gluten-free bakery in Springdale, Utah. Okay, now when I see that, then I can go take another search, do another search. My query and my thought process around what I'm looking for can get really specific and really unique to me. So I think there's value in that for people, and like, it'll take some training and for people to get that. I think the other thing that we see that I think most people have seen is there are chatbot experiences that are great, and there are chatbot experiences that are not great too. And so we all are going to need a little bit of reacclimation to what a chat experience is. Is it the decision tree that all you want to do is pound the "let me talk to a real person" button, or is it actually providing me with an answer that's going to move me in the direction so I can wrap up and I can get to the thing that I'm actually trying to achieve, rather than like the decision tree that seems to go in circles and is frustrating. So there's a shift happening there too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, whether you're a cable company or a phone company, right. You always want to talk to the human, because it seems like the bot is never trained well enough to actually handle whatever situation you have. Mm-hmm. I know I've been frustrated on both of those, which is one of the reasons I actually even left cable altogether. I just couldn't stand the customer service. And even if you wanted to cancel the service, they made it so cumbersome just to do that. Or if you're moving or anything, that you're like, well, I'm moving, but I don't know if I want to hook it up yet because I haven't moved there yet, so I don't know. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we could just transfer it. Like, I don't know if I want to do that yet.
Right.
You know, why don't you just put it on pause or do whatever you got to do, you know? But, you know, like the chatbots are just, they're just not at the level. And I think they do it intentionally. Mm-hmm. You know, I think they make it cumbersome. I have talked to a few different people in healthcare, and in healthcare, they're using AI in different ways, where I do think the experience is going to be greatly improved, because of the way that they're using it is to actually think about the experience first and how can we improve that, and then how can we assist it. So it really does come down to the people behind the AI who are training it to solve some of these problems, you know?
Absolutely. And in healthcare, I think one of the big unlocks that I believe in having spent a little bit of time in a healthcare startup myself, I frame it as like making time for empathy. Obviously, when someone is seeking out help related to something health related, could be their family, could be themselves, whatever it is, there's an enormous amount of value in human empathy in that moment. But human empathy gets kind of throttled down if that human also has to answer the questions that an AI could answer. So get me 90% of my questions answered, and then the last 10% where I need someone to have some empathy, the human being is there for that part where human beings will never be replaced in terms of like having real thoughtful empathy, especially when it comes to healthcare and in the health field. So like I see it as AI not replacing empathy, but making room for it, making time for it in ways that I think is just going to add to the experience dramatically.
All right, well, you're going to have to give me an example, because I can think of ways using AI if I had a mental health challenge of some sort and I wanted to speak to somebody right away. The advantage of using AI is you can versus a human, which, you know, they got to find a human available. And then having conversations, if the AI is trained properly, it can help you navigate or process a complicated issue or a complex, you know, topic that you're going through. Yeah. Whether it's addiction, whether it's relationship issues, whether it's professional situations, family related, medical issues, whatever the challenge is on your personal level. Yeah. There is a path, from what I've seen, that AI can bridge that gap when people just aren't, the bandwidth isn't there to help. Mm-hmm. So when you're saying about the empathy, can you give me an example of like specifically of like where you think the AI, the gap is? Yeah,
I think, well, I'll give you a super personal example. I was in Los Angeles 3-4 years ago now, and I was riding a scooter on the whatever roadway, and I hit a pothole, and I broke my collarbone.
Ooh,
and
wow.
It was kind of late at night, and it was scary because I was in a city I didn't know that well.
Right.
And I was with a couple of people, thankfully, that were able to, my coworkers were there and helped me out a ton. But when I got to the emergency room, I knew something was seriously wrong with my shoulder and my collarbone. I needed somebody there that could calm me down a little bit, you know? And if that person was on the phone in answering questions like, what does my policy coverage look like? What's my policy number? Yeah. What is the process for filing a claim? Like explaining that to someone, all of those things don't require empathy and can be handled quite well by automated systems or especially AI, and more and more handled well by AI, I think.
100%.
Already is happening today. When I'm in panic mode because I just hurt myself, broke the first bone I ever broke in my life, I was an old man practically. I didn't know what to do. So I needed somebody that could look me in the eye and be human to human. I think that there's a digital aspect to that. We see telehealth obviously as part of that. But I think there are those moments where when you're at the breaking point, another human being that you can kind of see or that you can feel their empathy is super important. And I think opening up the pathways for that to be focused in those areas where empathy matters most, that's what I mean. And I think there's pieces of that I think will hopefully stick around and I think are important to stick around. And AI can fill in so many gaps where there's less need for that.
We live in a world that's rapidly changing with AI and communication, which is one of the reasons you're here. And with that said, I feel we're on the brink of a new era in a very, very near future of AI wearables and also AI robots. And so we've had other guests on the show talk about examples where, like, for my mother who is experiencing dementia and now she's at the later stage of her life with dementia. But if you had an AI robot of some sort that maybe even looked like me on any level and could interact with my mother this whole way through this kind of like last phase of her life, how much richer that would be. And there are companies doing this. This is not like I just thought of this yesterday or something. This is like there are people working on this. There's definitely people doing different things. And where I'm going with this is like in a hospital setting or healthcare, like for your example, I can see a situation where a robot of some sort who's definitely programmed and trained to handle those kind of high pressure situations. And one of the things I've noticed just from my basic experience with AI is that it does do a pretty good job overall of navigating human emotion and just bringing it back to what's the core like problem you're trying to solve. And so in my world in askClever, we use AI chatbots and AI voice to train to handle either like appointment setting or marketing questions, okay? Yeah. And if I had you call in and talk to our AI voice, most of the time, like I would say 80-85% of the time, people really like that experience. They think it's natural. They're actually surprised by how conversational, and we were talking about some other examples before the show. Do you think that there could be a place and time, in the not too distant future, that maybe in the healthcare there is some sort of AI bot of some sort that looks more human realistic that could maybe bridge that gap and help you?
Yeah, I think it's always in the eye of the beholder, so to speak, in terms of like, as long as I'm feeling that empathy, if that's getting through to me in the moment when I need it, I don't know that it matters. And you're right, it is amazing how far voice and mannerisms and tone and all of those things have come a long way already. And again, we're still relatively early on to real consumer exposure. I think there's definitely the envelope will be pushed beyond what we're all imagining probably very soon in a short period of time. So I think it's possible. I think squeezing as many of those gaps out to provide great experiences and staying focused on that, I think it'll continue to evolve. Yeah.
Is your company working on like a AI voice response to search?
It's something we're looking at and talking about, just in terms of trying to understand how to deliver information. Like it's almost as if these large content customer sites of ours, the information is like locked away. And so how we unlock it and how we free it for the person that's on the website, there's many different things that are going to be possible and I think are coming into focus for how we deliver that. There are pieces of what we already have, what our customers already have on their site today, like voice search and then playback, because government sites, of course, many sites have accessibility standards that are super important, and we certainly, we adhere to those, and we feel strongly that those are a big part of how we deliver good experiences. So I could see a world in which there is more voice, or that's the default, perhaps. Yeah.
Sure,
We're looking
sure.
at that.
Well, as you know, ChatGPT is the co-host here.
Yeah.
And she has a question for you.
I do. So what industries or sectors are showing the fastest adoption of AI-powered search solutions?
I think it's, for us, from what we see, there are people in places like city government and universities where there is that just flood of information and strong branding and strong expectations, high expectations for great experiences through digital channels. It's where we see people kind of being early adopters and wanting to push the envelope. And one of the things that we see too that's a bit surprising, but also I think really compelling and important, is there are government bodies that are going in with their eyes wide open in terms of this will change how people are accessing services and getting value from the cities or counties or regions that they live in. And so there's almost like a mandate for, let's continue to push digital transformation through AI. And as a result, some people that are managing city websites are like, okay, this is something that AI can actually solve some real problems. I can see that there's people on our website that aren't finding what they need. AI can help here. So let's go apply this mandate of go find AI in real business problem solving ways. So I think those are some of the most common ones that we see. I think there's also, from a large global manufacturing standpoint, we're seeing a bit of an uptick there because there's these large diversified manufacturers that have consumer brands as well as business to business brands and wholesalers and large distribution channels and supply chains get super complicated. And so building intelligence in terms of accessing information through AI and through machine learning for, here's the actual part number that you need, and it's up to date, it's up to the warranty specs that are in place today, and you don't have to worry about, did I pull the wrong manual? Was this the manual for the version last time, or is it current? So manufacturing is another space that we are seeing more and more, especially for large global brands, start to think about how can all this analysis and generative AI on top of that analysis start to provide better experiences and get people answers faster.
And then just a follow-up question, are there any industries that are a little bit more hesitant in moving forward with it?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Good one. Yeah.
I like that one.
I think...
And be honest.
Yeah.
Throw some industries under the bus.
I mean, this is going to sound like repeating myself a little bit, but there are certainly cities, we all have probably experienced government websites that are well behind in terms of their usability and their UX. So there's places where they can't justify the investment. We spend a lot of time with government web people and IT people and marketers and communication people, and they wear a lot of hats. Budgets are extremely tight, and so for them to make time and to have a vision for where their digital journey could go next and how to apply AI in that digital journey, sometimes there's just not time and budget and resources to make it happen. So it's not that they don't want to. These people are highly motivated to help their residents, but there's constraints on it that sometimes get in the way.
Sure, makes sense.
Well, I want to go back to the way the result is given.
Yeah.
And one advantage of having like an AI voice is that it could manage multiple languages. So it could talk or speak to the user in whatever their native language is, whether it be Spanish or German or French or English or a whole host of other languages as well, and probably do it just as proficiently as the person like listening. And I would think that would be a highly valuable asset when your whole given mission is to provide information to the public, and whether it's a government, city, university, or whatever, and to be able to do it in the language without all the extra costs, because you're not having to translate everything on the website in all these different languages. The AI can just do it for you. I mean, I saw a demonstration by OpenAI on their app to do the translate, like if you're going to a restaurant and there's a communication barrier. So my son, who lives in Germany right now, he's shooting to become a professional soccer player. We've gone to Germany. Billy and I have sat in a bar, in a pub, and had communication, challenges, and it would have been great to just hop on the Wi-Fi, hit the button, say it, and then it would have just say it. Now you can, but that didn't even exist really a year ago. Right. I know Google Translate kind of can do it or what have you, but I would think, or what I've seen now is just faster and easier.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the voice, reply?
Yeah. I think the language piece really unites us as human beings in a kind of fascinating way. If we go a little higher purpose, I think there's something magical about that. Many people have seen ads or seen examples of two people that wouldn't be able to communicate very well if they didn't have technology in between them.
Right.
And so it unites people. I think one of the unique things that we see, since we are a company that works with a lot of Nordic customers, so there's languages like Icelandic that is not spoken by very many people. It's a fairly small country, and it's got its own language quirks in terms of how the phrasing is, some of the characters. There's some real challenges with translation for that language, and there's others around the world, of course, too. But that one in particular, where we have a partner there that's really doing AI embedding and modeling that helps unlock Icelandic, which I think there's something kind of profound about that too, because I think in a long view, it's going to extend the usage of Icelandic as a language that sticks around perhaps longer as part of their culture in a more real way. So I think there's fairly profound things that the right layering of technology can actually make culture stronger and unite us, rather than be a screen in between two people. It actually helps people come together. So there's magic in that for sure, and there's magic in kind of the humanity of it, I think. I think for the elements that we see in how people are hearing and being able to speak and search by voice, I think there's a real enabling of people that wouldn't be able to find information the same way too. So that it is genuinely part of what the team gets excited about and wakes up in the morning ready to solve hard problems to help people get access to that. So it's part of our mission for sure.
And you're talking about the different dialects in that part of the world, and then it makes me recall when I'm traveling in the Caribbean, and Spanish has so many different dialects depending on where you are in the islands or in Mexico. I mean, it seems like almost neighborhood to neighborhood, everybody's kind of adapted their own little way of communication, just slightly different, but enough to throw off, the Spanish person because Spanish-speaking person, because it's not the same dialect,
Right.
That is interesting. I didn't really think about that, but that does preserve each of these cultures in a different way that I never even thought of before.
And I think there is something, again, I'll get a little theoretical or philosophical, but
Please do.
There's something about voice. Like we are one of the few species on Earth that communicates in as much depth with our voices as we do. It's part of what makes us human.
Exactly.
And so hearing that in a way that's delivered in a way that's real or feels real or has that level of realness to it.
Right.
I think I don't want to get too negative, but we have to be, I think, somewhat careful with that because it has that human intonation and it's getting more and more real. It can be manipulated and it can be manipulative too. So, and I think it is what makes us human. That's what's magical about it. Laughter, voice, singing, things like that are kind of like unexplainable parts of the universe, and keeping that human and adding intelligence to it, artificial intelligence to it, to make those connections. I think we're entering into a very special time in terms of human evolution in that way, I think.
I would agree.
That went deep. Sorry.
No, I like it. I like going deep on this podcast because I'm glad you're opening up. You're sharing your personal experiences. You're telling me your deep personal theological views here because, this is what makes us human, right? This makes a difference between us and maybe AI replacing this conversation altogether, which we talked about, and we're not going to go down that road right now. But speaking of communication, I think this is a good segue into the segment I wanted to do next, which is Nick has prepared some questions for ChatGPT, and we talked about this beforehand, about asking kind of the old traditional way and then and then giving us some best case examples of how to talk or how to use AI to get exactly more relevant or more useful. And it really reminds me of, I have to bring this up, is that, okay, I feel like you and I are closer in age, and we've seen a lot change in the internet and social media and now AI. And we've been conditioned on how to use search. Like search is not like how we talk. It's like you had to learn how to find things on the internet. So you have to learn how to what to say in order to get the exact information you're really looking for, right?
Yeah.
And like my son, who's 18 right now, that kid picked up search, I call it search language, pretty quick. Like he could find things on the internet faster than I can, is what I'm trying to say. And he's been very good at it. And he's like, well, I know how to look that up. Done. Yeah. And I'm like, dang, that is super fast, right? And I feel like with AI fits more my speed because it speaks my language. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not right, but I feel like I can just say whatever my thought is, but it's not optimized for AI. And yet it gives me exactly what I'm looking for and answers my questions versus like having the ability to communicate through search like you do on Google. It's been kind of interesting. But anyways, I digress. Let's get to it. All right, Nick, give us a first example, a second example here.
Yeah. So let's say we were a prospective student, similar to maybe someone your son's age.
Okay.
And you were looking at a college degree program. You might go to Google or you may search somewhere for a cybersecurity program. So that's an example of, if I'm just doing exploratory research, I want to go into cybersecurity. I read about it somewhere, or my high school guidance counselor told me that that's a field that matches up with my interests. I might search for that.
So how would you say that? Like, let's say through a Google or kind of the old school way.
Yeah. You would probably, maybe you have a school in mind if you're a prospective student, or maybe you don't, and maybe you're just looking for, what does cybersecurity mean? Like, what very common would be, what's the salary for someone with a cybersecurity degree, right? Like
kids usually care about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't blame them. So that could be a common search. And what do you get when you search for that on Google? You get a list of links. You may get a U.S. News and World Report like view of what the top schools are. Some things will be optimized for what you actually want to see. I think contrast that with something more AI specific. You may want to say, I'm interested in a Big 12 school that has cybersecurity, that tuition's under X amount, or has a student loan amount that's this, or have some additional layer of insight that you want to propel yourself into. I think there's also a prompt-based show me cybersecurity programs in the Northeast United States that are driving distance to Boston, and then it shows me what those are.
Okay, hang on.
Okay, this is a lot.
Let's do,
Okay, yeah.
let's because I want to give a real example for everybody listening and watching.
So what I've started so far is I'm interested in a Big 12 school that has cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I should say college.
But okay, continue so that we get this down.
Yeah. So that is one query, and then if I were,
Didn't we say within driving distance of a certain?
right?
Within the driving distance of
Boston is what he said earlier.
Well, we said Big 12, so
I know. Is there any Big 12 over there?
I'm not. So maybe by Austin, Texas.
Austin.
Austin,
Okay.
Texas.
Do we want to add in
Yeah. What else did you say?
the cost, the
Sure.
tuition?
Yeah, with
It needs.
Tuition not exceed $30,000 a year.
sure.
Not exceed 30,000. Okay.
A year. All right, and let us know what ChatGPT says. Ooh, this is good. I love this.
We'll see.
Watch, it'll tell you, we don't have current information to answer
Oh,
this.
it's spitting out information. All right.
All right, ChatGPT.
All right. The first one, so based on my information I put in there, the University of Texas at Austin offers a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science with a cybersecurity concentration. It goes on to a little bit. The next one would be the University of Texas at San Antonio. Has a strong cybersecurity program. It is known for being one of the top-ranked cybersecurity schools in the country, which is pretty pretty cool. It's also 80 miles from Austin, making it within driving distance. Tuition is typically $10,000 to $12,000 per year there. So
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
And then the third
Bargain.
one is Texas State University, located in San Marcos. It's about 30 miles. Also offers cybersecurity related courses and degrees. While not officially a part of the Big 12, it's still a major university in Texas with reasonable tuition rates for in-state students. So
That's interesting how it
Yeah.
made the disclaimer, this does not match your exact query, but it's close. That's good. That's interesting.
But do you like that response more than, like, let's say we could have just typed into Google?
Yeah, I think it takes you further down the path, right?
Right.
And answers more of your questions. Ideally, then, like to play out the example a little bit more,
Please.
a student might say, yeah, Texas State. I didn't even think of that. They're not in the Big 12. Maybe their football team's not quite as good, but still a good school. Tuition looks good. Let me go deeper. And then what kind of high school credits? What's their acceptance rate? And take that prompt and build on it even more.
Okay, so you want to build on the application side. What is some of those criteria? And I was thinking you're going to go back to the salary side and say,
Right.
hey, what is
Maybe,
the
yeah.
average salary
Yeah.
for a graduating student in cybersecurity from that university?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you could do either one.
So I just added what are the acceptance rates for these 3 schools, and we'll just see what it says.
Thank you, ChatGPT.
You're very welcome. University of Texas at Austin. The acceptance rates for UT Austin is approximately 29% for the 2023-2024 admissions cycle. The acceptance rate in state applicants who do not qualify for automatic admission is around 10.3%.
Wow.
While out-of-state applicants are more competitive at 8%. So that's pretty.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a tough school to get into.
And then the last 2, I'll summarize them really quick here. University of Texas at San Antonio, rate about 77%. It's less selective compared to UT Austin. And then Texas State University has an acceptance rate of 81%. That makes it more accessible than other 2 options and still viable choice for cybersecurity studies.
So
Awesome.
that is awesome. Now, my follow-up question, if you don't mind, is what is the average salary for a graduate of a cybersecurity degree?
For a graduate,
For
a cyber.
security degree? Because that also plays as a
yeah.
major decision factor
Huge.
for students
Yeah,
picking a field.
yeah.
It's thinking.
All right, I like it. ChatGPT
All right.
thinks.
It's done. The average salary for a graduate with a cybersecurity degree can vary, obviously, depending on the specific role and level of experience. As of 2024, so they make it relevant, which is great. Entry-level positions like information security analyst typically earn an average salary of around $83,000. Mid-level roles, cybersecurity engineers have base salaries from $102,000 to $150,000, and then CISOs earn between $174,000 to $242,000. So that's a great degree to get, I think.
So what's a CISO? I don't even know what that is.
It is a Chief Information Security Officer.
Of course you know that, right?
Yep.
Thanks to your background, what you do professionally. We could put that up on LinkedIn.
But you could see one of those schools packaging up that entire set of prompts as enter these 3 parameters in our GPT, our agent, or our experience on our website, and we'll make the business case, quote unquote, or the student business case for whether this is the right school for you. You know, so taking that series of prompts that we just came up with kind of ad hoc, logically, just thinking
Correct.
through what a high school student might be thinking about, packaging that up and helping people make better decisions in a way that takes it even one step further in terms of like ease of use and ease of understanding what the pros and cons are. I think there's something special about that too, where when we evaluate any big life decision, what a lot of us do the spreadsheet maybe in our mind, the pros and cons list
Right.
in our mind or
Right.
on paper or in a spreadsheet. So helping people think through all those pros and cons, I think helps people make better decisions. So it's an interesting kind of, if a university was to extend that into an offering of a program finder or a program evaluator, could be a cool use case that takes what we just discussed and puts it like much easier to consume, right?
Well, also, wouldn't it be interesting if then the GPT actually asked you a question and said, hey, what is your grades right now? Where are you at financially? And where is this? Let me give you some options based off of where you're sitting today.
Yeah, right.
And then you're like, wow. And then you answer it. And then it literally goes, you would be perfect candidate for these 3 programs at our school.
Yeah, right. Yeah, guidance counselor, GPT, exactly.
Yeah, seriously.
So I ended up asking just one more question because I was very curious of what the diversity is in all 3 schools.
Okay.
So, obviously it depends on what they put out there. So the University of Texas, they have it broken down percentages with different ethnicities. And then University of Texas, while I don't have the exact breakdown for UTSA, it is known for being one of the most diverse universities in Texas. And then Texas State University, Texas State is also a designated Hispanic serving institution. It has a diverse body with a significant proportion of Hispanic and Latino students. So that's kind of cool to learn too.
Yeah. Again, what matters to the person searching? What are they weighing out? I think is it's really important to explore.
And I think if you were to type that same additional question into a search bar, all you would do is get relevant keywords on pages that may or may not even answer the literal question you're trying to answer.
Right. And then the first few responses, and this is just how it works. It's not bad or good. It's just how the system, how Google has been built, and how the systems have been built. I do the same thing for our business. The first 5 results might be ads for a service that can help you make those decisions rather than the
100%.
answers, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think we get so accustomed to seeing the ads on every search result. And now, of course, Google doesn't really, I mean, the sponsored ad is not even laid out that entirely much different than the results are giving. And so then, I mean, for me, half the time I just click on the ads because I'm like, all right, if they're paying for it, they must be really relevant.
be legit, yeah.
It must be legit. That's what I'm thinking. But I mean, everybody has a different process on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how you played to your audience, which is me. So thank you for picking a student, because I have an 18-year-old, and then B, really showing the difference between using a traditional search versus AI. So kudos to you on that. What about, do you have another example that we could go through?
check my notes. Well, I think the other example that, I don't know, other people, homeowners may experience, and like a lot of people in the pandemic did some home renovation because we were spending a lot of time at home. So this is a fairly common use case.
100%.
If I wanted to add on a room to my house, I might go to my city's website to find permits.
Right, exactly.
Or I might just search, I live in Minneapolis, what are the building permits that I need for a home addition?
Okay.
I might go to Google and search that.
Okay.
And you'd get a list. And maybe it comes from Hennepin County, maybe it comes from Minneapolis, the city site, maybe it comes from somewhere else. There's probably going to be some contractor ads. All of a sudden, you're going to be retargeted by contractors. That's part of the game.
That's how it works.
Yep. If you went to ChatGPT, you might have a different type of experience because you could see what the permitting process is. Show me the links for what I need to do. How long does it take? A richer set of responses, either on Minneapolis' city site or via ChatGPT, depending on where you go to search for that. So another example that we see fairly common when there's complex processes that actually have multiple steps, and similar to the university choice example, things to weigh out, things that pros and cons to different pieces of it, different steps that people may not consider. What permits they even need? Do they need an electrical permit? Do they need some other building permit? So the richness of the reply based on what you are asking, I think can vary a lot if it's a generative AI versus a list of links or a list of other types of responses, search results.
So for people listening or watching, what would be the best way to give a prompt to learn about the permit process and your example of Minneapolis?
Yeah.
How would you say that?
Yeah.
And we'll type it in.
Let's see. I think if I wanted to do the way that people would search today, not having adopted fully kind of the long tail prompt, I would probably say Minneapolis electrical permit or Minneapolis residential building permit. That would probably be my question.
And that's what you would type into Google, right?
Right.
And then you would get a bunch of different websites that would show you any relevant keywords to those
Yeah.
4 words, right? But if you wanted to do it and give a prompt to ChatGPT to give the long tail, like what's the prompt for it?
I would, and I've done this recently. I don't know if it'll work, so we'll see. This is part of the fun.
This is part of the fun.
But I would probably say make a plan for adding an addition onto my house in Minneapolis with permits,
Okay.
and see what it does. Maybe it'll make a step-by-step plan. Maybe it'll show me the links to the permits. I hope it does. That'd be nice.
Well, the nice thing is if it doesn't fully answer the question of what you're looking for, you just ask an additional follow-up question, and then it will keep going, right?
So I do have a question on this, because when you were talking earlier, I put in, I live in Minneapolis, what are the building permits needed to add a room to my house? So now if I make a plan for adding an addition onto my house with permits, does that kind of screw up the output of what I already put in there?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Shouldn't. It might not be localized. We'll see.
We'll find out in just a few seconds here while it's giving the answer.
It's quite long. Okay, it's all good.
You know what I noticed though also is that tell me in 4 sentences or tell me in 10 sentences. Like I have noticed I need to limit the response by ChatGPT. And sometimes I just say, give me 3-word answers.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't want the long thing, you know, depending on the topic.
Yeah.
I don't want long answers because I noticed that the GPT response is very thorough.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a reflection of kind of what you were talking about before. People that have grown up using search speak Boolean. They already speak the language of search. They know that this means that, and you can have this syntax means this thing. So they speak that language natively. I think we're all going to need to continue to learn the language of AI, the language of
Prompt engineering.
Prompts, exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it actually isn't as long as I thought it would be, but planning for adding an addition to your house in Minneapolis, they give you bullet points, and number 1 being initial planning, and it kind of gives you details on that. The next one would be permits needed, building permit, electrical permit, plumbing permit, et cetera. 3 would be application process, submit your plans to Minneapolis, and just kind of how you would do that. And it just says use the project docs system, so that's a link that you can go into. Number 4 is plan review. Wait for a plan review approval from the city's planning. 5 is construction. Once permits are approved, you go ahead with that. And then 6 is final inspection and approval. Schedule a final inspection. Obtain a certificate of occupancy. And then the plan should help guide you through the process. For more details, it says to visit Minneapolis building permits. Very
Under
helpful.
number 3 for the permits, does it give you links to apply for the permits?
It does. The 3 bullet points is submit your plans to Minneapolis Development Review Office, use the project docs system, and that is a link for electronic submissions. And then the 3rd bullet point is ensure plans include site layout, structural details, and mechanical systems. So
You get a long way just doing that.
yeah.
So it's a
Very
lot
helpful.
more thorough
Absolutely.
and a lot more detailed to your question than what search is,
Right.
just in general.
Yeah.
And for anybody watching or listening, that's where I constantly am educating people who've just never used AI, who have never really gone on ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini, and really just ask questions. Just like you would ask the internet, or ask Google. Type it in, but even be more long form, you call it long tail, and just speak it the way you want to speak it and see what it says. And the beauty is, if it doesn't directly answer the question of what you're looking for, do a follow-up question.
Yeah.
And write it as short as you want, like the question.
Yeah.
It can handle it.
Yeah. And I think part of what adds a new layer of value and a new set of vocabulary that we're catching up to as users of the internet is, what am I actually asking? Because what am I going to do with that information from that query? I'm probably going to put it in my own list. I'm going to put it in a plan that I'm going to create. If I just ask someone to create the plan, that takes me to the end goal anyway. So having the end goal in mind and skipping ahead and asking, build the plan, build me my vacation plan, build me my plan for going to college, What does my packing list need to look like? Like all of those things, I think people more and more are going to jump ahead, and we're going to be one step ahead of where we would have been if I were to say, let me go to Angie's list or Angie's and find the list of contractors. Instead, I'll just say, show me a list of home renovation contractors in Minneapolis and order them by their review type, give me their phone numbers. Eventually, we'll be able to say, make 3 appointments for Saturday because I want them to stop by. And it'll take it to that level, like the next step and then the next step, and it'll take us even further into the journey. So,
And that's what I like because it saves the conversation.
yeah.
I have a question for ChatGPT.
Sure.
I would like to ask ChatGPT, are you able to provide a CAD drawing if I give you the requirements for the addition to my house? And as she's typing away and asking ChatGPT, and we'll get a response here shortly, I think what's interesting is now that you have the AI for images, and in a previous episode, we interviewed somebody who's AI using it in video production. And we talked about storyboarding, and we actually had him give us a prompt. ChatGPT gave the storyboard for his concept of what he wanted to shoot for the story, and it was pretty good. Like the guy said, Chris McDuffie said that, hey, this is actually a really good storyboard to work off of. So it would be interesting to see, and we'll know right now whether or not you can do a CAD drawing for us.
So ChatGPT said, I am currently unable to create CAD drawings directly, but I can help you design the specifications and details needed for a CAD drawing. If you provide me with the requirements, I can outline a plan that you can share with an architect or designer who can create the CAD drawings for you.
Okay. I was just curious whether or not ChatGPT could do CAD drawings at this level.
Yeah.
So that is good to know. Good to know.
Right.
But like what you're saying, and in my world, well, in this example, you're talking about you could just keep going on the journey. Like, hey, where's the office? Hey, what time are they open? Hey, is there a coffee shop on the way? Can I stop and get coffee and get a bagel too? I know when I'm building websites or different software applications, I've been thoroughly impressed with the AI chatbot to not only give you the step-by-step of how to connect a software application with different APIs on different websites, but actually giving you the links to go apply for the developer portal to apply for the API. I mean, it is incredible how detailed some of these responses can be. And so depending on the topic at hand, so it can't do CAD drawings, can do storyboards, it can give you step-by-step on how to build a software application. And in some cases, it can even provide the Python language to build the application itself.
Right.
The AI tool is becoming, they call it the no-code future, where eventually you don't have to be able to write the code in order to build whatever your idea is.
Right.
But yeah, this has been very helpful to see some of the prompts, and I appreciate you doing that, because, where do you think all of this goes? Yeah. What is your prediction?
I think there is an element of like action orientation, meaning I want to do something. I want to put an addition onto my home. Like I said before, schedule all the appointments and take care of them for me. Like you could envision taking the things that I don't want to do. If I want to walk through with an architect, that's value add for me. If I want to have the person do the plumbing specs, I'm probably not that interested in that, or the electrical diagrams, things like that. Trust that to be handled by somebody that I don't need to intervene with. So I think we will eventually go into a mode of pushing the action forward, pushing to just do the thing that I want done, more so than tell me how to do it, give me the instructions. So I think that's an aspect. I think there's also, to your point around being able to create both content or software or applications or experiences, that creation piece is going to get smoother and smoother, which means deciphering what path to take is going to be something we need to catch up on. And by that, part of what we see every day is generative AI or creating content makes it so all of these websites, the inevitable path is going to be there's going to be more content. And so on these websites, it's going to be harder to find because there's just more of it. It's going to be harder to organize, harder to keep relevant. So generative AI and a logical explosion in how much content exists means each real answer that I want to find is a little bit harder to find. And
Right.
so there's an element of more content being additive for sure, and also makes findability and believability and validity and reliability even more important. So
And in the two industries that come to mind for me that are complex with just a wrath of information is the wealth management, portfolio management, and then also on the tax code and accounting side.
Right.
Like there's just ridiculous amounts of code, and having these tools can really bridge that gap to finding exactly what you're looking for and or providing, truly skilled answers,
Right.
based off of a different code. Well, I appreciate everything you're doing, and I appreciate you coming in and talking about what you're doing. And one of the most fun segments of the show that we get crazy feedback from you guys is our Fast Five with AI.
Uh-oh.
And ChatGPT has 5 questions that she wants to ask you, and this is our way to get to know Nick. All right, take it away.
why am I
right.
scared right now? Why am I?
No, these are off your hobbies that you mentioned earlier before jumping on here. So the first one would be, if AI could help plan your next national park adventure, what feature would you want it to have?
I want to know where like the very best like local restaurants, especially cinnamon rolls. That's my thing. I'm on a someday, maybe when I retire, I'll make the world's greatest cinnamon roll list, and that will need to be not AI generated. It's going to need to be from my taste buds. But yeah, my wife and I we're on a quest to see all the national parks in the U.S. and probably we'll go global once we hit those 60 some that are in the U.S. I would love to know the local restaurants that are hidden gems that sometimes you stumble upon. It's the most fun part. Seeing nature's cool, but what about the little local restaurant? That's what I want. So
Love that.
yeah.
And the follow-up question, actually, because you said you visited 14 of them. What is your favorite national park that you've been to so far, and why?
Super hard to choose.
Okay.
I'll say this so I get some brownie points, I guess. My wife and I spent part of our honeymoon in Zion in Utah. So that's one we returned to, actually. And special place. Very, it's not too remote. There's a nice little town right next to it. Easy to get in and out. So I'd put that at the top.
Awesome. And if you had an AI powered, so we've learned from Nick that him and your brother, correct, built a canoe, which is pretty amazing. If you had an AI powered canoe, what's the first body of water you would take it to?
Boy. In Minnesota, in northern Minnesota here, there's something called the Boundary Waters, which some of your listeners might be familiar with, but it's a special place. And that's probably the first. The second, I spent a little bit of time in Copenhagen, Denmark, and there's canals everywhere there, and that would be a fun place to paddle around too. So I would want that experience somehow helped with AI too.
Awesome. Third question. I think this is the fourth question, actually. What would a fishing-focused AI assistant be named if you created one?
What would it be named? Oh, boy. Something like First Cast. I mean, we all like to have that magical moment where we're actually catching fish. So I'd call it like First Cast GPT or something.
Awesome. You should trademark that real quick.
Anybody listening?
Yeah.
Secure that URL.
Okay, last question. What AI feature would make tracking your progress through all of the national parks more enjoyable?
AI feature. Besides the cinnamon roll tracker?
Yeah.
that's up there. I actually tend to, I do track like my steps, and I track how far I hike. So I would want to do that. It would also be kind of fascinating to do that, tracking where I've been, and also somehow highlighting without impeding the experience where I've been, and being able to recall some of those vistas or whatever in the moment, like, and not having to stop and take a picture, but just having them with you and being able to recall those in a visual way. I think that would be cool. I don't know how that would happen, maybe with a wearable or something, but
Do you have to wear those sunglasses or something?
Yeah. Facebook came out with the new glasses,
Yeah.
there you go.
you know, for the augmented world we'll all
It
be
might be
living.
it. It's already here.
It's already here. All right. Well, thank you so much, ChatGPT, for the Fast Five with AI. Again, Nick, thanks for coming in and discussing, you know, the difference between search and AI and what people can do and how it can be used effectively. I think we had some great examples today for everybody listening and watching about a vast difference in experience. And it's kind of fun to really have a professional like yourself come in studio and speak with us about the different ways to optimize. So is there anything that you would like to plug or let our listeners know how to get connected with you if they have follow-up questions for anything that we covered today?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find. Cludo.com, CLUDO.com is our website. And if you're interested in learning more about how our customers use AI to help people find information, lots to learn there. We have our own podcast, since most people listening to this are podcast listeners. It's called Masters of, put out by Cludo, where we're talking to some of our customers about some of the challenges that they're having and letting them kind of share their learnings when it comes to building compelling websites. So those are a couple. I'm pretty easy to find online too. So reach out if you have questions or if you just want to have fun conversations like this. I enjoyed my time. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will definitely put a link to your podcast as well so people can tune in and listen to that. And, you know, I really do appreciate you coming in studio today, taking the time to really explain how we got here and what we can expect in the future. Hopefully for everybody listening and viewing at home, you guys can find some value in everything that we covered today. And I just want to say that a couple things. One is that you can follow askClever-Over-Coffee-Podcast on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And also, we would like you to connect with us on LinkedIn, right? I mean, all three of us are on LinkedIn. We'll have all the links in the description. So make sure that you connect with us. And if anybody's watching or listening that has something where they're using AI in their industry, we would love to learn more about what you're working on and potentially bring you into studio as well to have that conversation. Because the whole point of the Ask Clever Over Coffee, How AI Built This podcast is to really educate people on AI. I know there's a big fear about AI replacing jobs and nobody's going to work anymore. And I think that's very misleading in many ways. It might be the case in some industries, but that's the same as like manufacturing going towards more of automation. I mean, yeah, does it take less workers to make things and build things than before? Yes. Do machines do a majority of monotonous work these days? Yes. But that doesn't mean that there's less jobs out there. It just, there's a shift going on. And that's one of the biggest purposes of this podcast is to help get in the front of all of that and really communicate and have some great conversations like we are today. Because I think this is the beginning of the shift in search in the way we will process and find things moving forward. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today and appreciate that. And again, follow us on Spotify, iHeartMedia, Apple Podcasts, and where all the popular podcast platforms are. We are there and we appreciate your time. And thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you next time on Ask Clever Over Coffee, How AI Built This.